Teardown is a sandbox game with unrivaled creativity. After finishing the entire campaign and DLCs, I discovered the challenge levels. The first one was easy, but Marina still haunts me. You need to collect at least 10 items and escape to get 5 stars, but I'm getting all of them. 16 items and escape, all within 60 seconds. Here's the layout. This mission is a heist, so chests are placed all around the map and usually locked to a wall. As a special note, the chest on this boat and the chest in this shipping container can be moved around the map. Once the chest is collected or its tether is broken, the timer starts. I began by jumping over to the map and came up with a few ideas of how I should pick up all the chests. I thought doing some sort of circle and coming back to the center would make the most sense, kind of like this here. So here we're pulling the shipping crate over to get it into position. And this shipping container has a chest in it. We'll clear some space here to get this Jeep through. And then we'll open up this and then we've made a hole in the ground so we can get this upstairs chest out. Knock through the wall by the kitchen to be able to grab that chest. And then we'll get these boats set up in a line. That way we can run over to the island chest. Run a couple planks across these boats. Then we'll get a plank over to our tugboat, readjust our chest, then to get to the dock, we'll position this boat to hold a plank up. Blow a hole in this wall so we can access the chest in the office building. And then we'll build a bridge out so that we can get access inside. On the inside, we'll knock some walls down. Then we'll adjust the second chest in the office room so we're able to retrieve it as we jump out the hole we made. In the hot dog cart, we'll adjust that chest so we can reach it from the window. And then we will set up planks on this lamp post so we can climb straight up to the gazebo. And then we'll just knock a small hole here on the side of the gazebo, that way we can get up to the chest hidden inside on the bench. then just a little bit of adjustment on the bench, that way we have a good running path. Off the edge of this cliff, we're going to set up a bridge to get straight to the second floor. And then we'll knock that wall down and then get into the chest. I forgot to record the process of setting up this part of the route, so I have some clips from when I was running the route to show you instead. Here we can see a large hole in the wall that I made to get us over to the boathouses, and a couple planks that help us get across that gap. The third boathouse has the chest. There's a hole in the ceiling so I can access the chest in the bathroom. Once inside, I can run out the front door and into a boat, which has boosters on it to help it move a little faster. This way I can get across the water and over to the utility building. The utility building has planks leading up to a small hole in the side, and then more planks leading up to a hole in the roof. After getting to the roof of the utility building, there's a small diving board to get us to the boathouse. After reaching the boathouse chest, there's a handful of planks that lead you up to the side of the warehouse to grab its chest before jumping to the boat. Now that's just the end of the route. There was another section I forgot to record where I was running the route, and I made a couple of changes. I'll let Live Nick explain that to you. I'm so happy I wasn't successful. I just realized I wasn't recording for like, who knows, maybe 65 for an hour. Alright. Let's document what happened. This was basically set up the way it was. I concocted actually, I'll show you. I'll show you what I did. I concocted a pulley barrel system where cool SUV hits the barrels, and then it all flies this way, yanking this along with it. It yanks it over, and then I can just hop out and run straight this way, which saves me like a second. I also put boosters on the far boat. There's boosters on the far boat. And then I put boosters on our big vehicle here to make it zoom super fast. This is the furthest I've gotten, right to here, which means I'm fucking close. So we're running the route really quick. We hit the barrels here, grab this one, jump across. You can see in this run, we make it to the boathouse. I think more importantly, we make it to the boat in about 15 seconds, but we only have the one blue tide left. So at the end of the run, we're still about 7 seconds from making it to the finish. When I recorded it, that is the furthest I had been. Here you can see a handful of spots where grabbing the chest attached to the barrels just didn't work right. Needing to save a little bit more time, I set up a Jeep coming out of the office building to get me over to this semi-truck. And then I positioned the semi-truck inside the hot dog stand. Wasn't cleared out enough though, so we had to do a little bit more work on the inside. and then I reparked the truck. Testing it out though, it didn't really seem like it was working still. So eventually I just moved the semi-truck out of the way, because every time I run this truck into the hot dog stand, it doesn't work. Even when I'm able to get the semi out, it's still incredibly slow. So eventually I move the semi out of the way and rely on just the vehicle, which seems to look pretty good. Finally, I had a run go well enough to actually get to that point and test it out. It seemed to work pretty good. But in this run we didn't use an extra blue tide, so we weren't able to capitalize on it. Which then gets us to the boat at about 12 seconds, so we were still pretty far behind, but we kept that second blue tide. But with only 7 seconds once we crashed the boat, we still weren't able to get to the boathouse. I did give up on the Jeep going to the hot dog stand, as it just ruined so many runs and it wasn't saving much time. Then from the warehouse in the center of the map, I made a hole so I could jump through the inside in order to get into the semi-truck, hopefully to save a little bit of time at the end of the run getting to the boat. I also redid the ramps, that way I'd be able to run straight to the chest, and then eventually decided that it would just make more sense to keep running on the side of the building and jump straight for the boat. So I laid out one plank just to make sure I had flat ground to run on and didn't get stuck on the rocks when I came off for the high plank. I did think the diving board on the utility building would be better if I was able to hop into a vehicle to get across to the boathouse. I wasn't sure how much time it would save, but if I didn't have a blue tide available, I thought that it would be better to run that truck across. So I blew up all of the grass. I got the truck stuck in the boathouse, but I was able to use a little piece of truck to get it unstuck, using a trick my dad taught me. I also moved this fence out of the way to make sure that I had access to the truck if I come off the utility building too early. Finally, I was able to utilize the truck, and it didn't seem to save much time, but still not sure yet. I decided having the chest against the wall in the community center probably wasn't the best bet. So I wanted it to be a little bit closer to the run, so I pulled it out from the wall and also added some extra planks that would be more in line with where I needed to turn from the chest in order to run onto the top of the boathouses. And then one more plank so I didn't have to make the jump going into the boathouse. Finally, in the main warehouse, I blew up the ceiling a little bit more so the chest could fly freely when I struck the barrels. Off the cargo boat jump, I positioned a car, that way I could drive it straight up to the next spot. Just had to make some space to get up into the office building, had to destroy a couple bookshelves. And then put some planks running up the side of the office building, hoping to save some time. Unfortunately, it took a little bit of work to get these planks working right. I tested it a couple times and ran into this utility box a handful of times. I'd also accidentally get into the boat. I put an extra plank down on the utility box, which helped about half the time, but I would still sometimes miss getting out of the vehicle and hit the side of the building, or still jump into the boat instead of actually jumping into the car. However, using the car seems to have saved a little bit of time. We got to the boat at about 12.5 seconds on this run, and we still had the 2 blue tides to spare, which by the time I actually got to the end and ran out of time, I was just cracking open that last blue tide. So with just a couple more seconds saved, maybe 3 more seconds at that point, I'd be able to finish it. With the boats heading across to the islands, I had an idea that if maybe I could slingshot myself across, I would be able to save a little bit of time. So I used cables to connect all of the boats. But I still needed a way to release the boats and actually slingshot them. So I hooked them up to this plank that I'd be able to shoot, and tested it out a couple times. When I tested it, it seemed to fling pretty well, well enough that I was at least willing to try it. So I destroyed all of the planks connecting the boats themselves, so they were just tethered with the cables, and then I left the cables connected to the actual dock by the plank. And when shooting the plank, it would pull the boats and give a little bit of momentum. Not something that would save much time, but I figured if I could just save half a second in a couple places in the run, it would be enough for me to get to the end. When shooting the plank and releasing the boats was successful, it felt really good. I kept thinking more and more about ways I could move chests to have them be more accessible. I was thinking about placing explosives on some stuff, but nothing really stuck out to me. So at this point, I decided I would set up a pulley system in order to pull this chest to where I needed it to be. And in order to release the chest, I used explosives on the backside to blow up a plank that I had connecting the chest to the wall. And when I shot the nitroglycerin blowing up the hot dog shack, it got the chest right where I needed it, in the middle. There was a little bit of variation on where it would land, which was sometimes problematic, but overall, it worked over half the time, which was enough for me to just brute force to try to get a good run. I did notice if I missed the shot and shot it late, it was more likely to be misplaced, but sometimes it would still be in the perfect spot. On this run, it didn't save me much time, but it did get me just about to the final chest, which was a huge improvement. I made some more space in the first warehouse, so I didn't have to worry about walls. The goal was I'd just be able to run from wherever I picked up the barrel chest and go straight to the kitchen chest. I also didn't want the car or the chest to go too far, so I stacked all these shelves up and drove directly at them, hoping it would kind of catch the chest. The first couple attempts, it didn't really make that much of a difference, but eventually it felt like it was kind of working. Also made some changes to the boathouse, got rid of a bunch of the floor so I could bring the boat all the way into that boathouse and jump straight into the boat instead of jumping into the bathroom, running through the living room, jumping out the front door into the boat, hoping that would save a little bit of time. This run was pretty successful. Off to a good early start, chest landed in a great spot. Ran through the boathouse and was in the boat at about 17 seconds. With both blue tides, by the time I get to the boathouse, there's still 5 seconds. I grab the last chest at the warehouse, and then my character flies on screen at the end. Definitely the closest I'd been to completion so far. Still though, most runs were not going that great, or even getting to the end. I'd have brutal failures all over the place. I decided that the community center's walls needed to get knocked down a little bit so I could get a straighter path. Probably only saved me 1/10 of a second, but I figured it was worth it. I finally decided I should experiment with using some bombs on the warehouse chest. I thought worst case scenario, if it didn't work out, I could just ignore them and it wouldn't hurt anything. But I put a couple of bombs down and realized it shot the chest right to where I needed it. So I looked for another spot to set up some bombs, and figured the community center chest would probably be a good place. The only concern was that it was on the second floor of a building, but I figured if I used enough explosives, it should launch the chest where I need it to go. So I put down 3 nitroglycerin to start with and shot it. It wasn't enough, but the chest did pop in the air a little bit, so I figured I was onto something. I kept repositioning it, and it was kind of getting to where I needed it to go, but it just didn't have enough oomph. But on my 4th test, still having changed nothing, it made it all the way over, so I knew it could work. I put an extra nitroglycerin on the bottom of the desk, and that seemed to be enough to bump it up and onto the platform I needed it to be on. There were easily over 100 attempts just to get to the end. And then it happened. I present to you the perfect run.